I'm going to be talking about shortening the learning curve with the Silk platform, basically my journey with KLEx and how I kind of got converted to actually doing KLEx over a period of time. So this is going to be more of a surgical talk, just certain aspects of it. I'm not going to cover everything in detail. So where we often struggle when we transition from flap or from PRK to KLEx procedures is one, in the docking. Two, the most common place where we struggle is dissection and lenticule removal. So I'm just going to go through a few of the things that we've done to make these steps a little bit easier. So this is a video which kind of illustrates this. Yeah, so first let's look at the docking. It's essential to wet the surface of the cornea, but make sure that the conjunctiva is not too wet. With the Elita, it's a two-piece PI, so you're looking at two components of the docking. And you have to make sure it's parallel. As far as the dissection goes, the first and most important step is getting into the anterior plane. So the most important thing is to tent up. These are a couple of signs which help us to, identify the correct plane of dissection. This is one that we published, which was the bubble sign. This is not the same as the gas escape sign, which was published by Dr. Sri Ganesh. You can see that if you're in the right plane, that bubble collapses when the dissector goes to the anterior plane. And this is another video where we actually show you what happens if you enter the wrong plane inadvertently. So you see that central bubble, it's persisting right over there. The surgeons got into both planes, and as they are trying to go through the central area, it's not actually dissecting properly. I think it skipped through the video. But basically what happens is that bubble tends to persist if you're in the wrong plane of dissection. The other sign that we have published is the double ring sign for removal of a retained lenticule. And can the voice play for this, please?
During Silk surgery, on performing supposed anterior dissection, more than normal resistance was felt. The dissector seemed to move more freely than expected in the posterior plane. Despite a seemingly complete dissection, we were unable to grasp the lenticule. Repeated attempts were made to find the anterior plane, but to no avail due to the presence of cap lenticular adhesion. Another desperate attempt to remove the lenticule was made. However, this also failed. Corneal edema precluded further visualization, and surgery was abandoned for the time being. ASOCT was performed on the same day and showed the presence of a retained lenticule as well as corneal edema. Slit lamp examination the following day revealed a reduction in corneal edema, and the ASOCT demonstrated the presence of a retained lenticule that we decided to remove. To improve visualization of the retained lenticule intraoperatively, we dilated the pupil and used the microscope's red reflex. Two concentric rings were seen at the border of the dissected lenticule, the double ring sign. The anterior plane was found with the short end of the dissector, followed by dissection of the anterior surface of the lenticule from the cap using the long end, making sure that both rings were seen below the dissector. Dissection of the posterior plane was checked, and the folded lenticule was well visualized against the red reflex and removed atraumatically.
So this technique was actually described, we all have used it for LASIK surgery where we look at flap striae, we tend to see them better. For lenticule, I think overall the various techniques that have been described included use of triamcinolone to demarcate the edges of a retained lenticule or to use an IOCT. Now an intraop OCT of course is a much more expensive tool, and the point of this was it's very easy. It's handily available to every surgeon. You just have to take your patient under your normal cataract operating microscope and dilate the pupil, and you get a much better view of the lenticule, of the retained lenticule. So for managing that particular complication, this is a simple tip that we actually went ahead and published. So you can see this is how it looks on the red reflex, the outer and the inner ring by the two profiles of the lenticule, the anterior and the posterior surface. And you have to make sure that the dissector is above both of these rings. That means you're in the anterior plane, and that means that you've got the correct plane, you'll be able to get the lenticule out easily. And this, like I said, was published in the AJO. So these were some of the points that I had regarding making the learning curve a little bit easier. So thank you all for patient listening. I'm sorry the earlier video tended to skip through a little quicker. I don't know why that particular thing happened.